We're live.
Hello,
What's going on, people?
I'm ready. I'm
Going,
ready. Good
going right.
evening. Good evening. Good evening for installment number 6 of the ABC Squared Book Club with Brother CJ Randall and myself, Reverend Darrell Bryant. We will go back into further conversation about my phone needs to be turned off about uh, Dr. W.B. Du Bois's writings on the education of Black people. We'll be, are we dealing with
We're still dealing with the section about family.
197, 198?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll be dealing with pages 197, 198. I'm really excited about this session tonight, and I hope we can give some information and inspire us to read further and delve into the scriptures even further. But first, let me say thank you, Lady Denise, for your technological expertise on this platform. Thank you, Brother Randall, for your great teaching that you've been giving us for these weeks, and look forward to more. And thank you, um, Pastor Earl Fisher, for allowing this platform to take place and for us to be able to do this further than the month of July. With that, um, I'd like to pray. Um, God, we thank you. We thank you for this opportunity, for this platform. God, we thank you for this um, this the courage to tackle these conversations, to be able to enlighten us and all Abyssinians concerning gaining more information and more knowledge about who we are as a community of people. God, we thank you for this place, this sweet sacred place called Abyssinian Baptist Church. God, we thank you for everyone that is involved, all the congregants that are in person here in the city of Memphis, and everyone else that is in the cyber sanctuary on Sunday and on Wednesday evenings. For that, God, we just ask you that you uh, continue to show up and show out as we take upon this endeavor. In the name of the Black Messiah, Jesus of Nazareth, we pray this prayer, and we say Ashe and Amen. All right, Chris, you back?
What's going on? What's going on?
Hey, man, I'm ooh. When I read the PowerPoint topic, a brand plucked from the fire,
Yeah.
I'm like, I need to hear more about this.
Yes.
You know, sounds interesting.
So, first of all, thank you for everyone coming, and thank you for everybody participating. I want to just say that tonight, in the text from W.B. Du Bois, "The Education of Black People," in the lecture that he gave titled "Whither Now and Why," there's a section where, and we've been talking kind of specifically about the text, and in the particular section, it says, especially and first, there has got to be a deliberate effort made toward the building of Negro families. Our family organization has been left almost entirely to chance. How, when, and where the Negro boy and girl is going to meet and mate has been given no organized thought, and in many cases, the whole process has been deliberately ignored. So, I thought it pertinent to begin this conversation with a quote from one of my favorite scholars named Dr. Asa Hilliard. He says, paraphrasing, that the primary question that we have to answer as a people is, are we going to be a family or are we going to be individuals? Are we going to be a family and are we going to be individuals? Now, I would say that in our current modern moment, there is a huge debate about what that looks like, if we should be a family or if we should be individuals. And I think that it is hard for us to imagine being family if we, in fact, do not know anything about each other. Baba Darrell, you on the exact, you are all up in my Kool-Aid and know my flavor. The title, "A Brand Plucked from Fire," is the title of the biography of one of the people we're going to tackle and we're going to think about tonight. And that is Deacon Julia Foote, who was the first Black woman deacon, not deaconess, but deacon in the AME Zion Church. That's the title of her biography, and I thought that would be appropriate. Can I get the next slide, please? All right. We've been delving for the last several weeks in 2 Samuel chapter 9, verses 1 through 13. And that has been sort of our ground in scripture. What does it mean that David invited Mephibosheth to the table? And how then we navigate the reality of being not only at our master's table, but also having to eat what the master has for us. And I think that conversation is full of possibilities if we analyze it and think sort of critically through it. I think it would behoove anyone to read that entire ninth chapter and all 13 of those verses. We will not do it for the sake of brevity, but there's that. Next slide, please. All right. So for those of us thinking about this, all of the conversation tonight will be centered around the realities and the multiple matrix of things that Black women have to face. I recognize that, one, I am not a Black woman. Two, that in 1 hour you cannot explain the totality of all of what Black women are and have faced. And three, that all of these particular slides that you will see in each one of these individuals actually could be a presentation unto themselves. I'm not a Black woman, I recognize that. Two, Black women's realities cannot possibly be captured in 1 hour. And three, this is not an exhaustive list. And all of these things could be any picture, any thought, any idea of any of these people could all be a slide unto themselves. What's going on, Mother Bennett? Welcome.
Hey.
Hey, Lisa.
I'm not sure if I'm doing this correctly.
All good. Welcome.
Thank you.
So on the screen is one of the towering figures of the Black Power movement, one whose narrative has affected the cultural consciousness of so many people. Her name is Assata Shakur. The name literally translates into "she who struggles." And the reason I placed her here is, and we would all do well to read her autobiography. It is a piece of canonical reading. I think is a life-altering and life-changing sort of topic. So I titled this slide "Toxic Cultural Exposure." So she says, people get used to anything. The less you think about your oppression, the more tolerance for it grows. After a while, people just think oppression is the normal state of things. But to become free, you have to be acutely aware of being a slave. Okay? So we have to be clear that we operate as Black folks. Thank you, Doc. We operate as Black folks in an alien cultural context. Everything we do, think, and navigate, all is happening under the backdrop of an alien context, an anti-Black social construct and social system. So no matter what the topic is, we realize we're navigating and negotiating that topic in an anti-Black social structure. Okay, so let's be clear. We have to be acutely aware of being a slave or being trapped in an anti-Black social condition. So there's that.
Brother C, I want to say that some of us don't realize. I think that we need to realize. I think some of us, quite a few of us, have Stockholm syndrome, and we identify with our oppressors to the degree that what is toxic culture doesn't feel to us.
Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about Stockholm syndrome?
Stockholm syndrome is when you identify it. It started out, I can't remember the case, where someone had been kidnapped, and they began to identify with the kidnapper as if that person had not wronged them.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that's a condition related to crime, which we know the toxic culture we live in is a crime against us. But yeah, that's where that comes from. So we have begun, and we have been taught to identify with our oppressors in ways that are harmful to us and beneficial to them.
Oh, for sure. I totally agree with that. What you got, Bob?
I think a lot of it has to do with some of the misconceptions that we have as a people of not wanting to be. A lot of us don't want to be community. A lot of us have bought in so much to the individualistic narrative. I think it comes from self-hatred, along with the anti-Black racism. The self-hatred piece, I believe, has done a lot of damage to us as hindering community from taking place. Again, we were community before the Europeans came upon our shores. We were community before the indoctrination of so-called white church.
Mm-hmm.
I put it like that: white theology, white European ecclesiology, if you will. I learned a big word the other day, but anyway, and it's frustrating to me in 2024 that we have not learned the lessons that have been taught for decades and decades upon decades, that they're not like us and they don't like us. So why do we keep running to I guess it's the old saying goes, it said, if the master's sick, boss is we sick. That's what they,
Malcolm X, yep.
Yeah. And Malcolm X also talked about, who told you to hate yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Your oppressor told you to hate yourself. So I think it's the trauma of that we still experience is something that we really have to tackle, and we really have to negotiate, not negotiate, but try to find ways to navigate it. And as we can see right now with Vice President Harris being attacked about her ethnicity. You had a guy on stage today in Chicago questioning her blackness and all of that, and it's like we give agency to them when we allow them to say these things. and we shouldn't do that.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I think that in this context of black women, I think this is a very particular and interesting conversation. Can I get the next slide, please? All right. So on the screen is a Dr. Ife Amadume. And what we know is what Dr. Amadume has done is she did a study of gender identities in an African context. And her groundbreaking work is called Male Daughters, Female Husbands, Gender and Sex in an African Society. So it is difficult to have a conversation about what gender means and how it functions and operates in a world where Black folks are navigating the physical, spiritual, ideological, sexual politics of whiteness and white supremacy. We have known forever in Africa that there's multiple ways to be anything.
Mm-hmm.
The poet Terence once said, I am, African poet from antiquity says, I'm a human being, so nothing is really foreign to me.
Mm.
Everything that has been a European revelation has been a Black fact.
Mm.
One more time. Everything that is a European revelation is a Black fact.
Mm.
We've known forever that there was one true and living God. We created monotheism. We knew that. It's an African idea. So the idea of multiple different kinds of men and multiple different kinds of women and multiple different kinds of energies and multiple different ways to be and exist and live and all of that, we've known that already. So a lot of these, yes, ma'am.
You lost some of them right there, Brother CJ.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we've known that. All of these conversations that people did, and please, everybody, I know none of us on the stream do this, but just because they said it on a podcast does not mean that it is factually grounded, spiritually correct, or historically accurate. It's just a Negro with a mic.
Mm.
Everything that's been a European revelation had already been a Black fact. Yes, absolutely, Terrence. I'm on my way there. So Ife Amadume is already saying there's multiple ways of gender, multiple ways of understanding who we are, multiple ways of thinking about our biology and what does that mean, and also how does our biology relate to each other. Yet in a European context where they have a static way of thinking about that man and woman are constructs based on simply genitalia and nothing else. And then we've ascribed value to those genitalia in a particular violent way. And we're navigating the social structure. We're going to have vestiges of that. I hate to break it to you. I don't care how big your Bible is or how fast your Bible app is. None of us have fallen out of revolutionary heaven. All of us wear the residue of an anti-Black social structure. So each one of our ideas are structured in that way. All right. So Ife Amadume kind of frames the way we should be thinking about this from a gender perspective. All right. Can I get the next slide, please? All right. Now, to the point about Vice President Harris. Again, every European revelation is a Black fact. We have known for centuries that Black women are capable leaders of nation states. That you can prosper and flourish when Black women and their nuances are honored and respected. These women on the screen were pharaohs in ancient Kemet. One of them, worshipers of the singular God. This is not new. White people are losing their mind about a Black woman in power. We've been doing it for centuries. long before all of our hysteria around these things, and a lot of some of the problematic and vicious things that even members of our community of both genders have said about the capacity of a black woman to do that, to lead a dominant nation state, which Kemet, also known as Egypt, was in antiquity, which is the reason why we got buildings in Africa older than the ones that were built in the 1950s here, and they look better. Okay, we have society running water. That was a black fact, and it was a European revelation. Cooking your food, not abusing children, all of those things are African realities. Okay, this is not new. On the screen is Pharaoh Hatshepsut of the 18th dynasty and Pharaoh Nefertiri of the 18th dynasty. In Kemet, they ran nation states, were pharaohs, and guess what? Had interesting gender performances and gender relationships. Not new. All of the stuff that Europeans came up, queer theory, all of these things that they're celebrating in the last 30 years, we've been doing it for about 5,000. It's not new. Sorry. Can I get the next slide, please? Now, everybody, type in the chat, Abyssinian Missionary Baptist Church. Why did I have you type the church name? In it is the name Abyssinia. It is named after an ancient African kingdom, known for wisdom, opulence, glory, everything. I agree, Terrence. Black woman is the mother of a nation. Yes, absolutely. Queen Makeda of Sheba is mentioned in the Bible. Sheba is in modern day Ethiopia. She's mentioned in 1 Kings, in 2nd Chronicles, in 1 Kings 10, and in 2nd Chronicles 9 in our sacred text, which is the Bible. And she's written in another sacred text of the Rastafarian faith that gave us both Haile Selassie and the amazing artist Bob Marley in the book called the Kabra Nagast. Where is modern day Sheba? I'm glad you asked. Ethiopia. What is an ancient name for that? Abyssinia. So even in our own tradition, in our own church, the legacy of opulent, black, majestic black woman leadership is present. All right? Again, every European revelation is a historical black fact.
And Brother CJ, let me interject here. Mm-hmm. Make sure that we understand that to be a black woman who is an important part of the community does not mean you have to be a pharaoh, that you have to be a queen. I'm going to be honest, personally don't like people to refer to me as queen. I'm Lisa. I'm Lisa Bennett, Mother Bennett, because all of us don't have to be queen. I understand the connotation and that people are striving to that, but I do want us to be very clear that Lady Denise is not a queen, but she is part of the backbone of this church with the work that she does and the attitude with which she does it. Sister Keitra, singing in the church, she's not a queen, but she is a woman who her spirit, the spirit of God comes through her when she opens her mouth to sing. So I just want us to acknowledge that we everyday women, from the White House to my little house right over here, over here in Raleigh, that we are wise black women. We are opulent black women. We are glorious black women. And to just make sure that we understand that we don't all have to be Queen Sheba. We don't have to Queen Makeda. We don't all have to be Pharaoh or what have you. So I just wanted to be very clear about that, because that term queen can be used in a punitive sense against black women as well. And I won't, go into that too much.
Oh, I agree that I think there's lots of uses of terminologies and realities that I think can create a bunch of problematic ideas for sure. Absolutely. I don't think that's even up for debate. Yep, I'm coming there. I'm coming there, Dr. Fisher. I'm glad you put that in the chat. So can I get the next slide, please? All right. Now, on the screen is Dr. Hortense Spiller. She's a professor of English at Vanderbilt University. And she has a text that is in the academic area of women and gender studies, particularly Black women, as it relates to the study of women and gender, is a must read. It is a text. It is a journal article called "Mama's Babies, Papa's Maybe: An American Grammar Book." Juxtaposed to her photo is a bill of sale of a person, of a group of people who are on sale in Tennessee. Actually, in Memphis. This is a 1855, I'm sorry, not bill of sale. This is an 1855 flyer advertising an auction for enslaved folks. So, be clear. On the slave ships, those people do not think of themselves as Black. They think of themselves as Yoruba, Igbo, Kikuyu, Fulani, Twi, ethnic groups. When I teach this to high school students, I write the term African, I write a dash, and I write American. And then I circle the hyphen. And everybody asks me, I ask everybody, what is the hyphen? And people tend to say they don't know, or they say it's a hyphen. I say, no, it's the middle passage. It is when Africans are then trying to navigate what it means to be themselves in America.
Mm-hmm.
What Dr. Hortense Spiller argues in this article is that enslavement is a dehumanizing process that created a thing called ungendering. To be a gender, one must first be human. And to be human, one cannot be thought of as enslaved. The enslavement process was an attempt to break all African cultural ways of knowing and existing. So you must understand that reality, that when Black men and Black women encounter the enslavement process, there is not fully a distinction between what's supposed to be something done by men and what's supposed to be something done or enacted on a quote-unquote woman. The reason Sojourner Truth, which is where this quote comes from, "Ain't I a woman?" It's her legendary speech. She says that. She goes on to say in the actual speech, am I a woman? Ain't I a woman? That's a question. Because I do everything that I have been subjected to, everything that a quote-unquote man is. I've been brutalized, beaten, destroyed, all of these things. So where is the European Victorian thing that's supposed to rescue me based on my gender? So we got to realize that we have come to know who we are biologically, physically, sexually, etc. in this kind of anti-Black context. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And can I get the next slide, please? Now, here I wanted to take a little bit of license. So, on the screen is Dr. Wilma King. She is a professor emerita of history at the University of Missouri. Now, she wrote a piece called Prematurely Knowing of Evil Things. And in this document, we highlight some things that I think are important for our church community generally. Okay. One of the things is this. He says, enslaved males and females were considered chattel. Chattel means property, not human beings. in the antebellum United States without legal rights to their person or protection from sexual violence. Moreover, rape as a word and practice was raced and gendered or defined by color and sex. So be clear, this is not something that is simply the violation of your body in a coercive, violent, horrible sexual way. And I know that we have to talk about this, and I'm so sorry that we have to discuss something this violent, but I think it is helpful for us to understand each other in a familial context. She then highlights something that takes place in the context of Memphis and Shelby County. She talks about an 1855 incident between a Georgia minister, white Georgia minister named Charles Colcock Jones, and a friend of his who named James Hammond, who he invited to his home. Now, a white minister who was labeled by other white folks as the apostle to the slaves and apostle to the Negroes, who was called religious and righteous, who owned people, gets upset because his friend violates his enslaved property, a woman, and then he gets high and mighty talking to him as if he don't own her already. He then writes him a letter, and then he turns over the case to two groups. One, the Presbyterian Church, white theology. Second, to the actual legal system. Now, this is a court case you all can go read. It's called Tennessee versus James Keaton. And there was a whole set of things that happened in this case, but I want you to hear the verdict of the case. So this is an open and shut. He's guilty. There's an 1852 statute that is supposed to protect children from violation. But watch what the white court in Memphis and Shelby County says. Now, this girl's name is Beck. That's all we know of her name. Protection for Beck was short-lived. However, this is quoting Wilma King directly. Protection for Beck was short-lived. However, and the jurors rendered a verdict of not guilty in manner as charged in the indictment. Their verdict, in keeping with an 1852 statute defining rape victims and punishment for perpetrators according to the 1852 statute. Listen to this part. If any slave or free person of color shall be guilty of this crime of rape upon the person of any white female child under the age of 10 years, he shall suffer death for such offense upon conviction. Beck had suffered a rape, but the 1852 statute made prosecution impossible since she was not a white female under the age of 10 years and Keaton was not a person of color. The jury's verdict was not unexpected by local citizens who must have been familiar with the law and the conventional wisdom that whites were not prosecuted for sexual abuse, no matter how the enslaved girl became, quote, prematurely knowing of evil things. That's in Memphis and Shelby County.
Still here today.
I know that would never happen, that the law would do disproportionate things in Memphis and in Black America generally based on the race and sex of the person who did it. I know that wouldn't be still going on in 2024, right? Right, Mother Benny? It's radically different, ain't it?
Sarcasm come through in your voice, Brother C.
I hope so.
I would say, I'm a retired educator over 2 decades, and I saw that, a specific incidents, but just even in the way we talk about Black girls who become Black women, we are quick to call our Black girls bad, and that implied in there is that they are overly sexual.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we saw, and not that they are, but we sure do sexualize them.
Oh, for sure.
black girls. So yeah, it can be hard to get convictions, even charges against
Absolutely.
people who commit uh, sexually related crimes against black girls.
Right. And here I want you all to remember, I'm not just talking about slavery as a set of historical realities. We also have to think about slavery as how people relate to black folks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As a dynamic of how people think about us, how people see us. There's an amazing documentary called When They See Us about the Central Park Five. Right? How are we viewed, and what are the political ramifications of that, of being viewed that way? Right. So, can I get the next slide, please? Now, on the screen, this is one of the hardest books I've ever had to read in my entire life. Now, when I polled all of the sisters in Abyssinian and asked about some of the topics, one of the more popular ones was reproductive justice and sovereignty. And so, in this book, bioethics lecturer Harriet A. Washington, who's currently a bioethics lecturer at Columbia University, has written this book, Medical Apartheid. Everybody go get it. It's on the screen. And one of the things that she highlights is the relation of a man named J. Marion Sims. J. Marion Sims. Write that name. He is considered the quote-unquote European father of modern gynecology. Now, to be clear, we've been studying women's bodies in ancient Africa for centuries, but this man is considered the father of that. Okay, just like in the medical field today, if you want to be a doctor in America right now, today, in the year of our Lord 2024, you take a thing called the Hippocratic Oath to do no harm. That is named after a man named Hippocrates.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what Hippocrates said himself? I stand on the shoulders of giants, for I'm a child of Imhotep, an ancient African Egyptian that lived thousands of years before he was even born.
Don't teach it.
Right? So, modern gynecology in the white world, where we live, is a byproduct of the partnership. So, all of the ways we view women's bodies, the reason legislation occurs the way that it does, the reason why black women have higher infant mortality rates, things like that, we cannot draw a pure causality. But what we can say is this: the modern study of gynecology, a lot is credited to this man, J. Marion Sims. Most of and there are still statues of him, buildings named after him, all of these things. And he is called by many scholars. This is why you need Black Scholars Matter. Somebody type that.
Pastor Earl's gonna type it.
Like that, because they matter. White scholars often, particularly when people are guilty of anti-black ideas and violence against black folks, they tend to try to erase those things. A man named L. Lewis Wall, who is, I'm going to put him on blast, who's a professor of anthropology and gynecology at the University of St. Louis, wrote an article where he called J. Marion Sims a product of many things, a product of his time, and we can't just throw him away because he did things. J. Marion Sims' early experiments were done on enslaved black women without their consent and without anesthesia. Also, it's right here. It's right here. I'm not making it up. All of these things were done without their consent, in partnership with enslavers, and with the support of the church. there is a picture. Dr. Washington goes into great detail early in the book about her wanting to make the famed picture of Marion Sims, which is him in a very nice European outfit with a tie, standing in front of this modestly clothed black woman, covering her breast. She wanted to make that the cover of the book.
Mm-hmm.
But she could not do that because guess who owned the copyright to the picture? Y'all guess? Pfizer owns the copyright to the photo. Is Pfizer doing anything else in medicine right now? Are they handing out any kind of shots, anything like that? So, J. Marion Sims and most doctors of that time, and guess what? In modern polls of many doctors today, they believe, just as J. Marion Sims did, that black women do not feel pain, are stronger, and can handle more than white women. Which is why I have said constantly, I get in trouble for this. It is difficult for black people and white people to engage in comfortable, wonderful conversation about any particular topic and build sociality. Why? Because a black conversation and a white conversation are never the same.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm black and I get married to a woman and this woman is pregnant, me and a white man who has his white wife and she pregnant are not having the same conversation because I got to worry about different stuff for my white wife if I'm white. And I got to worry about different stuff for a black woman. I got to worry about the fact that a black woman can be in childbirth and being told she's telling people she has pain and the doctor's ignoring her.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why our mortality rates look a particular way. And we have to be able to document these things, which is why Black Scholars matter. All right?
It's interesting. The mortality rate for black women who are having babies, that I can't quote who the study was done by, but there's a study that even when you account for similar levels of education, similar economic backgrounds, all of those things, black women still have higher mortality rates than white women.
For sure.
Some of that they account for environmental, psychological, the stress of being black and a woman in America. So I appreciate you bringing that up and really emphasizing that for us, Brother CJ, because I don't think we think about, we celebrate, birth, life, and even talk about it in a biblical sense, celebrate birth. But I don't think we really understand that every time a woman is giving birth, that is the most intense point in which she is closest to life and death. And
absolutely.
We know our African ancestors celebrate and protected, black women when it came to childbirth, and we don't get that here in 6 weeks. You got to go back if you get 6 weeks. Your body. So thank you for that up.
Yeah, and the thing that gets talked about in all throughout her book is all of the different things that black women face in terms of being a site of violence, literally violence enacted upon you, and also people just feeling comfortable with your violence based on the way your bodies have been described in the European mind and imagination.
Somebody posted a comment, Sarah Barton.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, for sure. Yeah, like the way we think about black women's bodies and the way their bodies get displayed, all those kinds of things, right? And so, there's so many things that we could cover, right? And so there probably may need to be a part 55 for this, but on this slide, one of the second more popular things second or third more popular thing was aesthetics, meaning looks, the way we present ourselves, and Black folks generally, and the way Black women have been forced to present themselves. So here is a popular scholar, public intellectual, and journalist, Shantae Griffin. And she has masterfully walked through the history of a thing called the Tignon laws, Tignon. These were laws, particularly in the New Orleans area, Louisiana, but all throughout the South, that basically forced Black women to cover their hair because their hair was seen as dangerous and threatening to the European order.
Sexualized.
Absolutely. This was spearheaded primarily by white women. Let me let that record also show and reflect. I know it's hard. Yeah, we have these gender. We think no, white women in conjunction with white men under certain levels of threat. I hope you can pick up what I'm putting down. Was like these Black women got to cover their hair.
Mm-hmm.
Literally every part of Black women's bodies, Black bodies generally for sure, but Black women's bodies in some very particular ways, all of it, every drop of it, from the top of their head literally to the soles of their feet, have been legislated, fought against, demonized, hypersexualized, all of it. I couldn't tell it all. If I had 5 of these weeks just to talk about this one issue, I couldn't do it. I could spend an entire semester on just one of these slides. But even now, when you see the Crown Act and anti-discrimination law, Black women are still fighting this battle. And a lot of the aesthetic choices that Black women have been forced to make, being fired over their hair, things like that, those things are real.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Every literal part of Black women's spirits, bodies, and minds has been a political site. Every decision Black women make is political. Absolutely, Sister Camille, for sure. Hair is still being legislated, hence the Crown Act, for sure, absolutely. And these things have long history. So across from Sister Griffin is a picture from the 1840s by Jacques Adamans called Creole in a Red Turban. All we know about the sister is that she's Creole. We also know that the trignon, or the scarf, was also to signify being in part of the enslaved class. So even certain free Blacks who existed in that area, Louisiana, and in other parts of the South, were forced to wear this to talk about what their bodies meant in the world.
Let's talk. Don't forget the rebellion part of that, is Brother CJ.
For sure.
Those Black women took those turbans and pignons and head wraps, and they started to decorate them. They were all beautiful colors and patterns, and they did, as Black women in particular and Black in general do. We take what was meant for our harm and turn it into our good.
For sure.
And
there's so many of that. There's so much of that. And so a lot of what happens in most of Black people's history is being given scraps and making gumbo.
Mm-hmm.
And Black women have been amazing at that throughout history, right? And so that's definitely this is just one of many examples. Can I get the next slide, please? So, to your point earlier, Mother Bennett, about a lot of the rhetoric you were talking about around the word queen, right? On the screen are 2 particular scholars, Dr. Tamara Baker and Dr. Gina Newsom. Now, Gina Newsom is a medical doctor. The other one is a PhD scholar. But both of them write about 2 things most definitively. One is that Tamara Baker writes mostly about how all of these different labels, the thought of you being superhuman, the thought of you not having to be of the quote strong black woman, the idea of being the foundation of everything, and it talks about how there's so much undue pressure on black women to do and be everything. If we remember, if anybody, we got some OGs, remember Whitney Houston song, "I'm every woman, it's all in me."
Shaka was their rich.
Right. See, that's how you know. That's how you know you're a real one. I got the remix.
Age there.
Yeah, I got the remix. You know what I mean? I got the remix. And also, the burdens of these expectations create all sorts of issues. And so, real quickly, can I get that next slide? Now, there is the most popular one of the topics chosen by the different sisters that were polled. When we look at these different stereotypes and we look at these different archetypes and we look at the strong black woman narrative and the independent black woman narrative and the superhuman black woman narrative and the I'm everyone, all of these things, and also when that's juxtaposed with success and that's juxtaposed with individualism and that's juxtaposed with surviving in an anti-black capital structure, no matter how successful black women get, there's also a whole bunch of mental health things that come in after that. Right? Absolutely, Sister Camille, yeah. So African Americans are 20% more likely to experience serious psychological distress than white Americans. Black women are about half as likely to seek mental health care. In 2019, black women, high school students, were 60% more likely to attempt suicide than their white counterparts. The cost of care, the lack of culturally competent care, because be clear, what Frantz Fanon says is the psychiatrist is often the agent of the police. So that just because we go to therapy does not mean it is culturally competent and aware of what it is we are necessarily dealing with. Mm-hmm. And black women are uniquely a target of that. And here's the last thing. It's also difficult based on what sorts of things Dr. Baker and Dr. Newsom Duncan are saying about, and all the things we just highlighted from Dr. Harriet Washington. There are fact-driven reasons to mistrust the medical system. Mm-hmm. A lot of folks did not get vaccinated during COVID because they were righteously thinking about all of the ways in which the medical system had been violent toward them, the Tuskegee experiment, things like that, forced sterilization of black women historically, right? The name Henrietta Lacks comes to mind, right? The way that black women's bodies have been exploited and extracted, and their cells have been used for medical research after they've been killed without their consent and the consent of their families, or even at the very least financial, support, right? And so there are all these different things. I'd like to get to one more, and then we're going to probably have to come back for a part 2. But I think this is an interesting place to close this particular section. The same marginalization that we find in the world, in the white social structure, has bled itself even into independent black institutions, such as the church. Mm. Preach, Dr. Burnett, absolutely. European psychotherapy is based upon white male self-mastery of white consciousness and traditional European notions of philosophy, for sure, yes. The black church, birthed out of black exclusion, birthed out of trying to find ways to affirm our dignity in horrible circumstances, and founded during the time of enslavement, and practiced on the plantation as the invisible institution. One more time, like I started. None of us fall out of revolutionary black heaven. Shout out to Boosie. All of us wear the vestiges of the social structure in which we exist. We're all socialized in this milieu together.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Evelyn Higginbotham, somebody I would point you to, writes a very exhaustive work called Righteous Discontent, where she begins to unpack in some very righteous ways a lot of the things that the black church was able to do in its early instances that quite literally, even in the face of their exclusion, black women were at the foundation of. And so when we come back next week, I think we'll be able to unpack some more of that and to get to some other things. But I think this is a good, righteous place to stop, considering about time. If there's any questions, comments? You got something for me, Mother Bennett? What's up?
I just want to thank both you and Reverend Darrell for allowing me to participate in this session. I must be honest, that's the only thing I can see. When the spirit was going, and I thought to myself, now we got to have a black woman in a conversation about black women community. And I think that's somewhere that we're just talking about the black church and how it birthed, what it was birthed out of. That's still a struggle we have, the black church, with what role do women play? What power do women have? So I again, I just want to say thank you that I was able to be a part of this as a black woman who is in the church, grew up in the church, and is a member of Abyssinian. I just want to tell both how grateful I am to be able to sit in here and discuss this particular topic with you guys.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I mean, we that's sort of the idea about being a family, right?
Yes.
It's hard to manifest yourself as a family when you are exclusionary of one another and ignorant of one another's plight, right? And so the reason I think I've tried to construct it in this way, and there's going to be, like I said, definitely a part two of this so we can finish this, but also to think of the other side of the fence is that I think a lot of times it's hard to build connection with people you don't understand.
Yes.
And God is not the author of confusion, but the devil is.
So is.
Insert Elijah Muhammad lyrics here. But thank you for coming. Appreciate you, Mother Bennett. We needed it.
Yes, sir.
You gotta come for the you gotta come for the part two too.
I'm part two. Next time I'll know how to go to the link. I won't technology get the best of me.
All right. Well, can I please get the give information? So I hope everybody has been excited about what we learned here. Hope everybody's really excited about what we're building. And this is only possible because it is an independent black institution that can righteously talk about the realities of blackness and learn and grounding it in righteous scholarship and righteous theology. And if you are excited about what you've seen, you should give here because you can. You should give here because you should, and give here because we need you. You should be good stewards of what God has blessed you with so that we can continue to be blessings to each other. There's a Cash App, ABC Ministries 1 Cash App, PayPal, abcministries1@gmail.com, Givelify, Abyssinian Missionary Baptist Church, and Old School Snail Mail, P.O. Box 9715, Memphis, Tennessee 38190. So I really appreciate everybody. Pray us out, Bible. Well, matter of fact, Mother Bennett, why don't you do it?
Oh, goodness gracious.
Yeah.
God, our Father, our Mother, our Creator, the lover of our minds, our bodies, souls, we thank you for this opportunity to listen, to learn, to love, and to laugh, to engage in what it means to be Black family, Black community, particularly in this Black church, Abyssinian Missionary Baptist Church. We pray, God, that something was said, an image was shown that struck a chord, that spoke to the heart, spoke to the minds of your people, and that we will take what was shared here this evening and not hide it away, but God, to meditate on it and let part of our lives that might be a blessing to ourselves, not as individuals, but as a community. We thank you, and in the name of Black Jesus, and in the memory of our ancestors, we say, Ashe and
Ashe.
Ashe.
Amen. Ashe.
Amen.
Ashe. Ashe. This was so good. This was good, y'all.
yes, yes.
Mother Bennett, you are welcome back anytime.
I'm in there.
All right. All right. All right.
Cause we got it. So that's definitely gonna be a part 2. So